Today I'm going to be teaching you about hazardous waste and ways to contain it and protect yourself from getting hurt with it, and how to dispose of it correctly and how to recycle it and things like that. So hazardous waste is waste that has substantial or potential threats to public health and or the environment. Hazardous waste is a type of dangerous good. And they usually have one or more of the hazardous traits: ignitability, reactivity, corrosivity, and or toxicity. So examples of hazardous wastes can include things like pine sol. It's a cleaning solvent, and if you inhale too much of this, you might get really lightheaded, and it might make you pretty sick. It might even give you some sort of a high, and that's really not what you want if you're trying to clean the house or something like that. So I would do as little as possible with this stuff, because it can possibly not be very good for you. That's one of the toxicity traits it has. I've got lighter fluid here that's also ignitable. As you know, it's lighter fluid. So I'm going to be careful with this. Make sure that if you're filling a lighter up or something like that, you want to wash your hands and wash the lighter off so it doesn't catch the whole thing on fire and blow up in front of your hands. Blow your hands off or something. I've got some ant killer. So if I'm sitting here spraying for ants in my double wide trailer house, which I do a lot in the summer because it is filled with ants, you want to make sure that you want to evacuate your house after you spray the whole thing, because you probably don't want to inhale all this stuff, because that's what I did one time. It did not go well for me. So make sure if you spray all this stuff in the kitchen and things like that, because that's where these ants are, put away the plates and things that you eat and put in your mouth, because that's not what you want to put in your mouth, this ant killer, because I'm pretty sure it could kill you. So one way to manage these dangerous materials is to mark and label the hazards that are associated with the material. So at work, we have to fuel our trucks up with diesel fuel or whatever, regular gas, and it has a ignitability sign that OSHA actually makes us put on our fuel bays to make sure we know that no smoking or any flames, they're not allowed to be around this stuff, because it's easily flammable and you can blow yourself up on company property, which is not what they want. Also, we use paint sometimes, so whenever you're painting on the paint or spray paint even, it'll tell you to have certain PPE on, which we usually have gloves and masks that have respirators in them, so we don't inhale the things and inside the paint, obviously, and stuff like that. So it is important that marking and labeling is correct and is on whatever you're using, and make sure that you follow what is needed for the material that you're using, or even recycling it. So here are some tips on how to handle and make sure that you are safe using hazardous materials and things like that. So if you're using a hazardous material that has some sort of benefit that you need to use it for, then you might want to use it for that intention only, for the purpose that it serves. So if you're using pine sol, you might want to only just clean with it. You probably don't want to put it in your drink to blend it up and make a cool little shake. You probably don't want to do that. If you're using lighter fluid, then you might just want to put that in your lighter. I don't think you want to use that for anything else, to be honest with you. Always use PPE. If you're putting fluid in your lighter, then you might want to use gloves or something around the lighter so it doesn't get on your hands or doesn't get on the lighter. If you're putting bleach or something into a different container, make sure it's labeled and you know what's inside of it, because you don't want to mistake it for, I don't know, detergent, I don't know, and you don't want to bleach your clothes with it. You probably don't want to do that. Make sure that your materials are listed, and so you know what they are. Read the labels and safety data sheets before using any material to make sure you understand the hazards and precautions. It's probably good to use the instructions on the back of whatever you're using to make sure that you know what you're dealing with, and how to take care of yourself while using these things. Store all materials properly, separate, and you probably don't want to keep it in a wet place. Things like paint or fuel, you want to keep that inside your garage or something like that, somewhere where there's not going to be any water and stuff, because it might ruin your fuel, it might ruin your lighter fluid and things like that. Probably don't want to keep it outside or anything like that. So never eat or drink while handling any materials, and if your hands are contaminated, don't use things like contact lenses or rub your face or anything like that. So if you're dealing with these sort of materials and you want to wash your hands or wash your whatever you're using, your clothes or anything like that, you might want to put something on over your clothes so you're not getting these hazardous materials all over the place, all over the things that you bring home to your family and might get them sick, things like that. So when you're transporting these hazardous materials, so that you're transporting things from your work to a different place of work, you want to make sure that you put them in the bed of your truck if you've got a truck, and if you don't got a truck, you might want to make sure that them things are covered up. But if they're in your truck bed, then you want to make sure that they're covered from the weather, making sure that it doesn't ruin your hazardous materials or anything like that that have benefits towards you. So you want to make sure that they're covered from the weather. Any chemicals that are incompatible from each other, then you might want to make sure that they're spread apart. And also another thing that I said earlier, you might want to make sure that they're labeled and marked right so that you know what they are and what you're dealing with and how to keep things that are incompatible away from each other. Most states and local governments have places designated for recycling of your old hazardous products and materials, so they can be recycled into their actual form. So if you're just going to go throw it away, it's not the proper way to do it. You need to go to a place that is designated for recycling of hazardous materials. So if you're going to throw away a bucket of paint, you don't want to do that. Take it to the place and they'll recycle it and they'll make it into paint again so somebody else can use it. If you're wanting to throw away motor oil, take it to that place and they'll make it into a lower grade oil that can be used for probably other things that you don't need to be driving every day. Cooking oil can be recycled into livestock feed, pet food, and biodiesel and things like that. So there's no need to waste all those things, and it's not the proper way to dispose of them. So make sure that you contact the provider that you got the things at, and they'll tell you where to take the things and all that.